honor to kick off this session, GMs Tell the Truth About Tech. We've got two great general managers from the Miami lodging community, and it's my pleasure to bring to the stage Glenn Sampert, who is general manager at Intercontinental Miami. Come on up, Glenn. And Mutluhan Kuchuk, complex managing director at Lowe's, Miami Beach, and Coral Gables. Mutlu, come on up. So our thinking behind this session, and I've gotten to know these two gentlemen, and they completely concur, is we want to get a different perspective on technology. We've spent a lot of time the last few days digging into challenges, solutions, what tech can do for guests, what they can do for workforce. And we wanted a reality check. So, you know, you're going to hear some thumbs up here. You're also going to hear some stuff maybe you didn't expect to hear. And we're kind of psyched to really take that dive. I want to give you each a minute to just introduce yourself and tell our HT Next audience who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Mutlu Küçük, Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel, and recently opened Lowe's Coral Gables. The title is Complex Managing Director. It's not because my personality is complex, but it's the new name that we adopted when we opened the Lowe's Coral Gables Hotel. If you haven't seen it, it's now 1 month old. Please go ahead and have a look at it. It's probably one of the best products in town.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Glenn.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Sampert, General Manager of the Intercontinental Miami, our iconic conference and leisure lifestyle hotel right on Biscayne Bay.
Nice. So we're going to kick off with, you might call it an icebreaker, but I wanted to just make clear that what these guys do is a bit different from what some of the IT leaders in the room do. And so I asked them a question. I said, what's the most surprising aspect or maybe anecdote that you can disclose about your job as general manager? So I'd love to hear that. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be surprising to everybody in the room. It was surprising to me when I first started my career. I studied business. I did not study hospitality. And then I started at the front office at the Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel, to be exact. What I found it very surprising is that this notion that when the customer, the guest checks in, there is a negotiation process that starts at the time of check-in about what type of room they should be getting. You know, if you look at the other industries, you see, take auto manufacturing or automobiles, you know, you go to a dealership, you're like, okay, so I'm in Ford dealership, I'm gonna get a Ford. You don't necessarily go in and say, oh, I'm gonna pay for Ford, but I'm gonna get a Benz because I feel like it. Or you go to Apple, you're gonna buy a phone and you know what you're getting. I was very surprised with the fact that there was a ton of negotiation. Although they have already made the selection way in advance, oh, can I have the presidential suite, right? That's an extreme example, but that negotiation that was taking place at the time of arrival was one of the most surprising things that I wasn't used to, because that's not what I studied. Now it feels like it's normal, but that was one of the first learnings of my career.
Mm-hmm. And that's an operational challenge, because it can delay the process. But it's also, to me, there's also a social emotional challenge. It's sort of like, wait a second, you expected a completely different product.
That's absolutely correct. Having worked in almost every department, I think that the front office is one of those departments that we can't appreciate enough. They have a tough job, and they mostly do a fantastic job in handling guest requests and challenges.
Cool. And Glenn, do you have a surprising angle or anecdote? Well,
the surprising anecdotes I typically save for cocktail parties. I think the surprising thing about our jobs as general managers is the level of granularity that we engage in, not just on a daily basis. It's literally throughout the day. I use the morning walkthrough as the example of starting the day before a cup of coffee and however you do it, start of your building, going throughout it, and you're engaging with either customers, meeting event planners for events like this, your room attendants in your housekeeping department at their, highly energetic stand-ups to get them ready for their day, to engineering talks with your engineer about, what went sideways last night. And that's really why I've been in this business as long as I have, is there's so much variety with it. And for this audience, the technology plays a piece in all of those different disciplines. So we really do have a good working knowledge of systems and the things that interconnect all of our teams in a fairly deep way.
That's great, great insight, and especially for those of us, I'm a magazine editor at Hospitality Technology. I can kind of slide into my morning. There's coffee, there's yoga, there's sort of like, unless there's a fire, it's, and in the case of a general manager, you're describing like an intense morning routine, and that's important for people to understand. Glenn, I'm going to stick with you because the next question is directly related, and then we'll hear from Mutlu on the same topic. I'm interested in and this is really where this session came from in the first place, what technology tools make your job easier and, just as importantly, or maybe more so, perhaps make the jobs of your staff easier?
The ones that I would say are the most impactful for on the colleague side would be those that connect them and then connect them to a guest. So that's a lot of the communication tools, and there's a lot of great technology that allows our teams to not just communicate, voice, there's digital, there's data, and that just keeps growing. So anything that touches how one department communicates and connects with the other is really critical for us, because our guests are experiencing the hotel in a really kind of horizontal way, right? They walk through the hotel as all of you did to get here. If there's disconnects between all those different individual teams, you feel it. And so those ones are really important for us from my perspective, to make sure that those are happening. The guest side is, to me, what luxury travel is today, is customizing everything and having some ability to optionize how they get the services they need. Do they want to go to the front desk, or do they want to use a mobile app? And so those technologies that really allow a guest to customize how they get amenities and services in a hotel is equally important today.
Mutlu.
Yeah, for me, it's nothing earth-shattering, but guest-facing texting technology that we are using. We are actually using a company called Kipsu. We're very, very happy with it. I thought in this day and age, it's such an important tool. Makes the guest experience so much easier, so much better, and they can communicate from wherever they might be in the hotel. So that particular technology, I'm a big fan of, and that's not the only company. There are many other companies who offer similar technologies, but I just wanted to compliment them because we've had nice partnership in the past. I'm a fan of that technology. And in terms of heart of the house, look, there's a technology called, or a company called Rex that helps you break down the house for your ladies who are cleaning the rooms. It also helps you prioritize which room they need to be going into, giving them live information as they're on the floor. Way back in my days, it didn't exist. Everything was manual. You would use paper to break it down, and a simple mistake would trickle down to the entire hotel. And then when you had a VIP room that needed to be prioritized, you literally had to go find the lady to communicate that information, or you had to do it through the radio. This is instant information that's communicated to the ladies. It makes their life easier, obviously enhances the guest experience, creates efficiencies and better productivity for the hotel.
Yeah, I love that. We obviously spend a lot of time on covering at Hospitality Technology. We spend a lot of time covering guest-facing technology, and we do try to contribute to the discussion around workforce technology. But I love that kind of solution. it's maybe not super exciting to somebody outside the community, but it makes such a difference on property.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not sexy, but it's absolutely very, very useful.
Yeah, very cool. So Mutlu, I'll stick with you for a follow-up question. It's sort of the flip side of what we just talked about, without naming specific brands, because if you want to compliment a brand, that's great. But this question is, what kind of technology do you consider, at least at this point, maybe overrated in what you do?
Yeah. Thank you. The hotel PMS and POS systems, I feel that they're behind. I also feel that during the pandemic, a lot of people realized how behind our industry is in terms of technology is concerned. So I think there's more investment coming into our industry. And if those guys are not seeing what's coming, they're in for a rude awakening. That's what I think. I go back to my days when I had Razr phone in my pocket and I thought it was the coolest thing and I felt cool having it. Yeah. Look where we are today. I look at the PMS and POS technology systems. Yeah, there's some improvement since those days, but nothing comparable to what we carry in our pockets today.
Yeah. And we have data that correlates with that in our annual lodging technology study that we shared on Tuesday here. A significant chunk, well over 50% of hoteliers reported that they do plan to make some upgrades or even completely replacing PMS in the coming 12 months. So absolutely. Glenn, same question.
I don't know if overrated is the right term I would use for the things that I have in mind. I think it's maybe a little bit more uncertain, which is the introduction of robotics. There's definitely some hotels that have done some interesting things with whether it's a large robotic arm doing luggage storage in a lobby or a completely automated front desk. So I haven't, my only, I think, personal use of a robot was in a grocery store in Massachusetts, and it scared the heck out of me when it came up behind me when it was cleaning an aisle. So I think right now just AI, I think AI has a lot of opportunities for us because it can aid what we talked about prior, but maybe robotics I'm unsure of.
Yeah, we're hearing that, and it does seem to depend on the brand a bit. Nobody disputes that, like maybe an economy place that you roll up to off the highway and you're just going to spend the night. If a robot greeted you and a kiosk did your check-in, you're not missing something. But I would say at your properties, among others, there's an experiential expectation.
It's very Instagrammable. Yeah, it has. Yeah. But it may not be right now what everybody wants, but we shall see. I'm sure I'll be proven wrong. This may not age well.
Mm-hmm. We're capturing it all on video. This is a hypothetical, but if you could commission a guest-facing tech tool, we'd love to hear. And of course, you're not an engineer, so we're not asking you to for the plans, but to solve a specific problem. Glenn, we'll stick with you, and then I would like to hear Mutlu's answer to this.
I think Mutlu touched on one that came to mind immediately, which is trying to bring some of that ease of settling a charge within a hotel, whether it's a restaurant charge, a pool charge, in doing it. There's technologies out there. I don't know if they're ideal right now, so that kind of comes to mind as well as Mutlu's thought on point of sale systems. For us, it's there's now digital concierge and AI chatbots are definitely there, and it gives guests instant access to assistance. I think that's the one I would like to see leaned into, to say, well, how can that really be a seamless ability to not just get information, but to book positive space in it, whether it's attractions or different things. I think guests would find that. And the example would be, in our hotel, we'll often have 1,200 guests, and we've got a great team of Clé d'Or concierge, but I'll typically have 3 people. And of course, we have a lot of ambassadors in our lobby, but 3 people can't serve 1,200 at the same time. And so having some aid to letting a guest, again, choose what they want to do in that space and get the most out of their experience, whether it's business or a leisure experience, getting information about the city and attractions is what, things we like to do when we travel.
Nice. Lulu.
So I would go back to the legacy POS and PMS systems and sit down with them and try to understand like what's the hang up and what's happening and what's stopping them from moving forward. Or conversely, look at the top 5 tech companies and sit with them and show them what's not working and ask them the question, why are you not moving into this space? They're sort of like scratching the surface now, but why not fully invest in it? Because if you come up with a better technology, there's plenty of hotels that would like to adopt it and get ahead of the game. So there is money in it. There is an ROI on that investment. But then again, there are a lot smarter people, I presume, who had done the exercise. But I would love to understand like what stops them not penetrating into this market. There's so much, you and I spoke about that earlier, so much repetitious work. Not necessarily replace the team members, but complement them. Again, another one that's not so sexy, but the inventory, china, glass, silver, linen. Like every hotelier goes through that on a regular basis. Some hotels do it monthly, some hotels do it quarterly. It's repetitious. The amount of labor and amount of hours that goes into that, it's almost mind-boggling that we don't have a technology that can help us resolve that.
Namulu, you addressed guest-facing and then also some workforce-related tech that could use improvement. Glenn, do you have any thoughts about workforce? Like basically the same question. If you could commission a tool or identify a problem that a tech vendor should focus on where the workforce is concerned.
Yeah, right now it is about availability and scheduling of teams. There are some applications that are used primarily for banqueting and for events. When you have a large workforce, they may not all be full-time, and communicating with them in real time when you have availability for shifts and schedules. Having a solution that is more enterprise-wide, I think would be very helpful because it is how we communicate with our colleagues these days. It's, in the old days, we used to print a schedule and put it up on the bulletin board and people would look at it, and obviously that's not the most effective way. And so having something that actually works across all of the different functions within a hotel would be very interesting to us. There's a lot of texting that goes on between leaders and colleagues on availability and call outs and those types of events that you need someone in very short order.
I think it came up, we had a phone conversation a week or two ago, and this idea came up, and what you're saying now really is reminding me, this is like a mini focus group, basically, and technology developers and suppliers and hotel leaders could benefit from, I could picture it like having a room, I can't clone you two, but like, let's say for the sake of argument, I could, a room full of 10 or 15 hotel managers could bring such insight to, so I think one of you may have suggested that to me in the first place when we were talking on the phone. So it's just sort of an open question. Have either of you ever participated in anything like that? And if so, I'm wondering why not? Because it's we at Hospitality Technology, we do think tanks all the time, virtual. We don't ask everybody to fly to Chicago to participate in it, for example. So anyway, it's kind of an open question.
I think it was Mutlu's question, or point. So I'll let him. Elaborate.
Sure. No, I haven't participated. There has been some questions, but it wasn't an official task force or a commission that I was part of. That doesn't mean they are not taking place. I'm sure they are. There's, the focus groups, task force, so on and so forth. There's always that need to get the information from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I know they do exist. I haven't had a chance to participate in it. I think that our home office folks are on it. They are in these conversations on a regular basis. Because we also have day-to-day jobs managing hotels, I think that probably what has precluded us for the most part. But yeah, I'm certainly, I would be open to that type of conversation. Again, I am not an engineer. I don't necessarily consider myself a techie. But at the same time, I do understand I can define the needs of the hotel, or if somebody was to propose a service or technology that could enhance service, front of the house or heart of the house, I will be able to, with decent accuracy, tell you if it's needed, if it's useful, if it will work or not.
Right, right. Glenn, additional thoughts on that?
Nothing bad happens when you bring together vendor partners, end users, other experts. I was actually just attended an advisory board meeting. You know, one of the nice things about being part of a global hotel company is we've got great customers, and we use them for their insights into our, not just our branding and our services, but our sales process. And that was a really, I'm not quite sure why I got invited. I think they wanted me to help at the cocktail party, again, with my anecdotes. But it was really insightful to hear all of those people together, and the, you know, the vendor badge comes down and the customer badge comes off, and really it's a conversation of experts in a field talking about those kind of things. So I think there's a lot of value that would come from those kind of roundtables where there's a lot more engagement from people to ask questions and then also hear different viewpoints. It was very helpful to me as an operator to hear our customers even talking with a global sales team, you know, about what their customers are looking for.
Right. I have a few follow-up questions, but I want to, while we have you all here and we have these two gentlemen up here, I want to open up if anybody has a question. If not, like I said, I've got some follow-up questions for these guys, and maybe you'll think of a question. Any? Great.
I hope it's on. Give it a tap.
Testing, testing. Yes, it is. Good morning. Thank you. A question around cybersecurity and how your culture and the managing director or GM is a critical player in creating a culture that respects privacy of data and securing your systems. And having overseen a large estate in the past, there was consistently some tension, maybe, between technology looking to safeguard the assets and the data and ease of operational use. And I would love to hear your perspectives on that. Thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about it, funny enough. We were having a cup of coffee earlier and talking about cybersecurity earlier. And we are able to speak to our roles and how we impact that while we manage the hotel and while we are operating as the operators of the hotel. There's also the other component where you're, you know, whether it's your home office or a company that you outsource so that they can control everything that's behind the scenes. I feel very comfortable with that part of the equation because we have very, very talented home office folks who are looking at that day in, day out. I know that's one of the things that probably keeps them awake at night. So I know from that standpoint, I can speak about the company that I work for, and I feel very, very comfortable. In terms of our role, it's all about educating the team, training the team, making them aware of why it's important. We also partnered with our home office, and we do simulations. We call them the phishing simulations. So we send those malicious or emails that are pretending to be malicious, or in some cases they're pretending to be your friends, but you're not supposed to open it because your training told you so, so that we can measure our success rate. And as you know, everything you measure gets managed. So I feel that we have good systems in place, from everything that's not tangible to everything that's tangible, with our leaders and team members opening emails, who have access to emails. However, you're never going to be 100% foolproof. And you have seen examples of that, not just in our industry, but in other industries. So it's a real threat to all industries.
I think the only thing to add is what, agreeing with what you said, is culture is everything, and the general managers have to be the culture leaders when it comes to all things, including cybersecurity. It doesn't, anybody who's gone through any kind of a breach and the impact on the business understands the potential for harm. And so then it's really, I think, it's, again, same thing. It's about education. You know, back in the day, it was about saying no to the guest who wanted you to take that USB drive and print out their document, and how to say no to that. And then today it's about, you know, emails and email security. But we just need to be knowledgeable ourselves and communicate it in a way that makes sense, and then give our teams a solution on how to work around, like, whatever those are. But yeah, the basics of sharing passcodes and all those things, that's just a discipline matter that we just have to be the leaders for.
And in yesterday's cybersecurity panel, Luke mentioned that, you know, in some ways, hospitality's great strength, of course, serving people, making people happy, can make it especially vulnerable. You know, you've been taught the customer is always right, be friendly, be responsive. And so some of these phishing attempts just prey on that. And I mean, that literally hurts, that, like, you know, turning our greatest strength into a weakness. As I said, I've got some follow-ups with these guys, but anybody else have a question at the moment?
I don't see any hands right now, Robert.
Okay, we'll keep moving. Speaking of customers, I'm kind of fascinated by how the voice of the customer gets incorporated into tech development and service. And this is something we touched on a little bit on our phone call, but I'm going to kind of spring it on you a little bit. Yesterday, I had the privilege of interviewing 3 solution providers up here on the stage, and we got into the idea of, like, well, how do you know, they're serving hotels, but ultimately the end user is a hotel guest. So, you know, if you're at a major tech supplier, how do you hear that voice of the end user? You guys, on the other hand, are face-to-face with the end user on a regular basis. So are you hearing on daily or weekly or with any kind of regular cadence, are you hearing from customers some need or complaint about tech, or some positive, like, you know, we loved this. We loved, you know, for instance, mobility and self-service, which we see on the rise?
The positives that we hear are, again, things we've talked about: the ease of communication, the ease of accessing what they're looking for that we do. So the text, you know, if it's text chat, if it's a mobile check-in, if it's a key to the cell phone, those things are, you know, they've moved from being delighters to, yes, that's what a modern hotel offers me, is that ability to just seamlessly, you know, access what I need. I don't know if there's another side to that on what they're looking for. You know, we try to stay a step ahead, and I don't know if we're 100% successful. The example that comes to my mind is we developed an app for ordering in-room dining when we had very limited food service a couple years ago. And of course, as we've brought back full service to the hotel, I was expecting to have a really strong adoption of that technology. And last night it was 3% of my orders. And so then that just makes me question. So no one's telling me, hey, I don't want to use your app. They're telling me with how they're ordering food. And so now, you know, now the work is the app not good enough? Did we just not build a great experience? Is it just easier to pick up the phone? Like, what is it? It's not too often a guest will just tell you exactly what they want in terms of a technology, but you do know where your pain points are. And so that's where I focus, is where's the pain? What do you say no to? You know, more coming from the colleague side. But, you know, we get some great reviews from guests that do tell us when things go wrong. And from that, you know, and then we can follow up as well. If they allow us to communicate, you know, from a review, then we're going to dig for more details. And we're open to hearing about that.
So I would go back to that commission and task force topic. there's got to be a better system to identify and carve out your repeat guests. And I'm not talking about loyalty programs and so on and so forth. A technology piece that can really enhance and make the guest journey much superior than what it is today, where, you know, from A to Z, I feel like there is information that we have systems to collect that information, but it just sits there. It's passive. You still need a human being to go in there, have a look at it, and start taking action. What I had in mind is, and I'm sure this is doable because it's going to sound oversimplistic because I'm the one who's talking about it. I don't have enough education and background in tech and engineering, but some system that would say, okay, Glenn Sampert is a repeat guest of ours. We know his preferences. We know what time he likes to check in. We know what type of amenity he wants in his room. We know what time he wants his room to be turned down, his service, so on and so forth. He likes his coffee at this time. And then it activates the systems in the hotel and triggers it. So that way it's not sitting there, but it is saying, okay, 48 hours in advance, he's coming in, his arrival time is 3 p.m. You know what he likes in his room when he gets in. Let's make sure the room is ready 48 hours in advance. The kitchen gets the amenity request. It's the same amenity. So the guest walks in, the room is ready, comes to the property. They don't even have to go to the desk because they can walk into the room through their keyless phone, through their smartphone, mobile check-in. They walk in, the room is ready. When they walk in, they see the amenity ready, already prepared, as they like it. And it's possible because the information is there, the technology is there, but the technology doesn't necessarily communicate with the rest of the technologies that the hotels use because it's pretty fragmented.
Yeah, some very cool ideas there. Checking in with our attendees, questions for these two exceptional gentlemen?
On the way, Robert, hang on.
Great, thank you.
In an environment where every hotel is faced with employment challenges or bandwidth challenges, what's something you wish the tech vendors would do better to assist you in change management?
Labor was the question about labor?
What would you tell leaders to assist you with labor management?
Change management.
Yeah.
Change management, I'm sorry, thank you.
Change management.
Then I'm sorry, I missed the point. But that's my bad.
Apparently I did too, I apologize.
Change management is hard when pulling out a PMS or any other system. What's something you wish the tech providers would do better to assist that process and make that better for you?
Yeah, I have to think. It's a good question. It is, again, I keep coming back to communication, right? Particularly when it comes to the staffing and labor. So we are needing to change and adapt the way that we work with our talent. And a lot of that also comes down to being flexible, whether it's when a shift starts, how much time in advance there is. So to me, anything that can help improve that two-way communication, where it's not just, as I said, there's your schedule, it's on the wall, what's your question? It is more of a dialogue that allows the leaders and the colleagues to be able to find something that works for everybody, because right now we're having to be very flexible, much more so than in the past, to be able to have the right people at the right time so we don't have any drops in service.
Yeah. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, it's change management for the labor force particularly. I believe that's really the question. I think that technology always can complement what we do, but the change management has to come from the leadership. And as Glenn mentioned earlier, as the general managers of the hotels, we need to be the ones who are leading it, and then it trickles down to every team member in the hotel. How technology can help, I think that the communication, the training, and so on and so forth, the ease of having access to information I thought they would be helpful. That's what comes to my mind. If we understood the question, I hope we did. Did that answer your question?
You answered another great question.
Should we give it another shot?
Thank you. Are there other questions?
Yes, there is. Hold on a second, Robert.
I swear I'm not paying these guys to answer the questions over here. All right, good morning, gentlemen. Kind of a follow-on to that. As you know, you guys face it the most. Rebuilding from COVID, labor has been the biggest challenge. So what can technology do to help with your labor efficiency? What can technology help with retention specifically? So how can technology enable your team members to want to stay with a company? And how can it make them more efficient and make your life easier from a labor standpoint?
Incentives and recognition and pay are, I don't know which one's more important on a daily basis, but those are the three things that, we have a lot of conversations around, and we have old, programs and these heritage things that do work, but I don't feel they hit enough people. And so, and we use a technology to communicate with our teams. It's basically a social media site for colleagues, and trying to get engagement on that is also a challenge. And so I would say I would need to put some thoughts around that, but somehow using a technology to be able to communicate incentives and recognition and find ways to really be able to make someone feel valued and reward them through a platform that is really easy and it's not, it's not laborious, because sometimes some of our programs we have within our hotels are great, but they're quite time consuming, and we're begging our leaders to help us recognize and being aware of the great things that happen all day, around, large hotels. I think that would be something I'd pay money for that.
So I heard the word efficiency. I think that with regards to efficiency, I want to be careful with that, because I feel that the technology will complement our team members, not necessarily replace, but we might be able to gain some efficiencies through technology. I gave the example of repetitious work quite a bit. Again, China glass, silver inventory, that's a big one. It really doesn't require any critical thinking. It's the same thing that you're doing over and over again until the task in front of you is completed and vanished. So it's surprising that we don't have anything in place for that. You could look at all inventories, including from spot checks of alcohol to alcohol inventories and so on and so forth. There's quite a bit of repetitious work. The kitchen, which is seeing some robotics that's entering the kitchen and the culinary environment, but not fast enough. But if you think about that, like cutting, let's say an apple, right? The way it's cut, we know that the technology is there. It's probably not financially feasible. That's why it's probably moving in slower than I'd like to see. But there's a lot of repetitious work that doesn't necessarily require very high skill, but would give us really great efficiency. And in terms of retention, I think that we need to take away the glitches for our team members. If you take away the glitches and the frustration from them, they're going to be happier and they're going to stay. I don't know, there's so many different examples. You pick up a pillowcase, you have a stack of them and it has a stain. Right? They take pride in their job. They're not going to put that into the room, and they're going to look for the next one, the next one, the next one. And eventually the frustration starts building, and we need to eliminate those. So that pillowcase example could be applied to many different work throughout the hotel, where we can reduce the glitches, therefore reduce the frustration, therefore keep the team members happy. And based on my experience, apart from bad leadership, the glitches are one of the top reasons why our team members leave, because they're frustrated. It feels like the job becomes harder than it needs to be.
This has been such a pleasure. I want to thank both of you, Mutlahan Kuchik from Lowe's, Glenn Sampert from Intercontinental. Amazing, such insights, and I look forward to staying in touch with you and checking in about technology as this whole dynamic evolves. Thank you so much.